Hi, I'm Debbie Georgatos. Welcome to my show, America, Can We Talk? Today, we're going to talk about the Supreme Court. Senate stands ready, families divided, Trump and the revolutionary 2020 elections, and Kim Klacik, a ray of hope. And of course, I'll tell you why these stories matter to you. Stay tuned.
Debbie Georgatos, host of America Can We Talk, is an author, attorney, and political analyst whose mission is to inspire the American political conversation about preserving liberty in the best country on earth.
And welcome again to America Can We Talk and to today's First Five. Yesterday I talked quite a bit about the legacy of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the Supreme Court Justice who passed on over the weekend. And she, of course, is going to lie in state. There's going to be very serious and reverential honoring of her life and her service on the Supreme Court. But we are moving very quickly toward replacing her seat on the Supreme Court. President Trump has announced that he is ready to roll, that between now, as soon as possible, he wants to have the United States Senate vote on a nominee that he makes, that person to fill the Supreme Court out to 9 seats again before we get to the fall elections. So I wanted to hit on something that happened. This is just kind of over the last 24 hours, but Senator Lindsey Graham has said that he believes that the United States Senate, the Republican majority, has the votes ready to at least vote on this possible nominee and perhaps to confirm. So Lindsey Graham is saying, we got the votes, we're ready. And in a pretty shocking announcement, Senator Mitt Romney of Utah has announced he actually thinks that the Senate Republicans ought to follow the Constitution. I'm not really joking. He made an announcement. This is Mitt Romney, who is kind of an endless thorn in the side of President Trump, kind of always needling him and needlessly disagreeing with him. But even Senator Romney said, we need to go ahead and have these hearings. We have to follow the Constitution. The president has the right to make a nomination. The Senate then holds a vote. So it looks like at least we're going to have that happen. President Trump has apparently announced he's going to let the nation know on Saturday who the nominee, down to 2 women apparently, which are both conservative justices, have been long known to the members of the Senate. One is Amy Coney Barrett. She was probably considered the front runner. The other one is Barbara Lagoa. Both women have been through this process of confirmation in the Senate, and both are well known to the senators, especially in the Judiciary Committee, the ones who have to look at this decision. And it normally moves from the Judiciary Committee, makes a vote, and then it goes to the full floor. And as it always happens, whoever holds a majority in the Senate holds a majority of seats in every committee. So the Judiciary Committee, majority Republican, expected to go along with it. But I want to hit on a couple of points that really are important to understand, because this is tremendously consequential. It's consequential because the left is trying every trick in the book they can to somehow delay this hearing. They will, I can guarantee you, if they have a hearing in the normal hearing process, you'll have senators on the Democrat side saying, well, I put out investigators, I'm gathering data, we're still reviewing all the decisions they've issued, we can't possibly be ready for a hearing. It's going to take us 6, 8, 10 weeks before we can even be ready for hearing. There will be a dozen or more tricks up the Democrat sleeve of ways they can delay having this move forward. So Rush Limbaugh floated the idea yesterday, I think, that maybe the Senate shouldn't have any hearing at all. And I want to say, I actually think sometime deep back in American history, there may have been a very good reason to have Senate hearings. It may have been actually because we didn't have social media, we didn't have the instantaneous availability of information on the background information on candidates for the Supreme Court. We didn't have access online to finding the decisions they had issued and to forming opinions about them. But every member of the Senate Judiciary Committee, every member of the Senate, anyone in America who wants to know anything about these 2 nominees or any other nominee already knows. There's everything you could ever want is already known. So when the senators are clamoring for a hearing, they're clamoring on the Democrat side to behave like they did during the Kavanaugh hearings. If you recall that in 2018, when President Trump nominated Justice Kavanaugh, and the Democrats could hardly stand the idea that they were going to have to be part of voting for this man, voting him in to the Supreme Court, and they engaged in a long-term, stretched-out witch hunt, dragging up stories, allegations against Justice Kavanaugh from 40-plus years ago. No evidence, no possible reason based on his life to believe any of them, but still the nation had to watch all of that. And that is what I think Americans are hoping does not happen in this cycle. I actually think, because I did think about it quite a bit after hearing what Rush Limbaugh suggested, I think it's a great idea. I think the Senate can have they can either set very limited hearings. We're having, 1 day to think about it. We have a vote in the Judiciary Committee, and then we're having 1 day of hearings on the floor, or 2 days, or none at all. The Republicans are right to not let the Democrats create the Three Stooges Act on national television during the entire process of what has been a traditional nomination hearing. They don't have to put up with that. America doesn't have to put up with that. These two judges are already well known to everyone who pays attention to the Supreme Court. They're well known to the members of the Judiciary Committee. They don't really want, the Democrat senators don't really want the opportunity to ask questions, to learn information. They want to, and they use these hearings to create little clips of themselves they can use for future campaign ads. Look how tough I was. Look what I said to Kavanaugh. Look what I said to this new person. They are creating campaign ads for themselves. They're working on preening themselves in front of the national cameras, trying to have the most incisive and often acerbic questioning. Often, many of the Democrat senators aren't even asking questions. They're not asking. They're just using the opportunity, the time allotted to them, to make a self-serving, pontificating, obnoxious, blathering speech, never asking a question of the nominee anyway, and there's no reason that America should put up with that silliness out of the Democrat Party. So I'm all in favor of the idea, either limited or no hearing at all, and get this vote done. The Democrats don't really have any questions they have to ask these two nominees or any other nominee who's had enough service in the judiciary to be on the short list for President Trump to nominate to the court. Love that idea. I also want to go on to mention that in particular, Mitt Romney, when he came out and said that he was going to honor the Constitution, I think what's going on there is Mitt Romney and other Republicans recognize the only reason that the Republicans held the majority in the Senate in 2018 during those midterm elections was because the Republican voters in America finally saw the Republicans show some backbone in the Senate. Republicans around this country, many even Democrats around this country, did not like the stunts pulled by the Democrats in the Senate and the confirmation hearing for Justice Kavanaugh. And they were so grateful to finally see the Republican Party find a backbone in the Senate, stand up, demand and call out these people making up stories about Kavanaugh, and bring it to a hearing and confirm him. This is why the Republicans held the majority in the U.S. Senate in 2018, and this is why you see Mitt Romney all of a sudden finding respect for the Constitution and respect for the right of President Trump to make a nomination to the Supreme Court. He knows that there were many, many Americans not wanting to see a replay of the Kavanaugh disaster and wanting to see Republicans act like they understand what the Constitution is. Democrats have behaved badly in this scene, as they have quite often. I want to just show you a brief clip. There was a rowdy protest outside the home, the Washington area home, of Senator Lindsey Graham, who was the chair of the Judiciary Committee, and who was one that made the announcement that there were enough votes in the Senate to go forward and to work to at least have a hearing for and probably confirm the president's nomination for the Supreme Court. So here's a mob outside of Graham's house. Okay, I'm going to tell you that there's not really that much difference in terms of the intelligent articulation by the protesters in that little video. Those people were outside in the middle of the night outside of Senator Graham's Washington, D.C. home, outside, and they are screaming and making noise, and you hear banging drums and blowing noisemakers making a ton of noise in a residential area in Washington, all to protest Senator Graham's announcement that the Republicans really think they have the votes for this nomination. Senator Graham wasn't even home at the time. So all they're really doing is showing America this is what the Democrat Party is reduced to. In fact, there really wasn't very much difference in terms of what you heard these people screaming, yelling, protesting with no articulate message, very similar to how the Democrats behaved in the Kavanaugh hearing in 2018. They had no point. They had no serious arguments to make. They just wanted to make noise and get attention because they wanted to be seen fighting against the Republicans and against President Trump, but not with any serious substance. You had, in fact, in that particular hearing, you saw some of the worst behavior by Democrats in the United States Senate in the Judiciary Committee and broadly in the overall Senate hearing, behaving very similarly to the protesters outside of Senator Graham's house in Washington, D.C. Time to move on. This Senate, they already know these two nominees. There's no reason to have a hearing and give the Democrats a free advertisement creation period to do all of this. And there's no reason, I go again, because I'll tell you that many alleged women's groups are now speaking out saying that these two nominees, this Amy Coney Barrett and the other ones, I always lose the other one's name, Amy Coney Barrett and Lagoa, I think her last name is Lagoa, that these people, Barbara Lagoa, the Democrat leftists are saying these ladies are not fit to take the seat of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg because Bader Ginsburg stood for this and these ladies stood for the opposite. Again, it's not Ruth Bader Ginsburg's seat. It's the Supreme Court. It's the court created by our Constitution. It's a court where every opening is filled by the process the Constitution provides. President nominates, Senate confirms, and I don't recall these same loudmouth groups complaining back in 2016 when President Obama tried to fill the Supreme Court justice seat of Antonin Scalia with a leftist Merrick Garland. Nobody made that argument. None of these leftists made the argument that you can't put a leftist in the same seat that Antonin Scalia held. They were clamoring to insist that Merrick Garland got confirmed. My point, and wrapping up the first five, is this. There is no principle. There is no principle. There is no logic. There's no basis to humor these kinds of arguments that are saying essentially President Trump should not be nominating someone to fill that seat. There's no principle behind it. All they're really saying is, dang, the way the Constitution is set up, we're going to lose out here because the president's allowed to nominate and the Senate's going to confirm, and there you go. And you know what? Even if Lindsey Graham really did mean to say we got the votes, we're going to confirm, why wouldn't he say that? Why shouldn't he say that? Why shouldn't they confirm? They know these two candidates. They know what they stand for. They already know that they are on the side of preserving the Constitution, and there's nothing to be gained by days and days of hearings for Democrats or Republicans in dragging out this process to create a media spectacle, and the media will be pouncing on every word any candidate, any nominee says, contorting their life history, contorting their story, smearing them. No reason to give the media or the Democrats any further argument on this point. Time to confirm whoever it is that President Trump nominates. And that, my very fine friends, is today's First Five. I want to talk about something that's happening in this country. And, you know, there's a kind of high-profile story that I will tell you. But then it's really kind of a pattern that's happening around this country and families around this country. And it has to do with the elections and families becoming divided. I call this Trump and the revolutionary 2020 elections and families divided. You may have seen this piece. There's a guy, a man, who writes at an outfit called The Medium, like M-E-D-I-U-M. His name is Leo, and it's G-U-I-N-A-N. I'm just going to say Ginan, but he is a writer at that publication, and he wrote a piece called "Today, I Gave My Dad a Choice: Trump or his grandkids and his son." This is a guy who wrote about the idea that he went by his dad's house and saw that his dad has a Trump sign in the yard. And because he, this millennial dad, doesn't like Trump, he took to media. He took to a public announcement and wrote a piece telling the world, I told my dad, if you're going to support President Trump, you're keeping that sign in your yard, you're going to support President Trump, you can never see your grandkids again. You can't see me, your son, and you can't see your grandkids ever again. And I want to talk about that a lot. First of all, about this guy and the astonishing, shallow, self-centered, pompous thinking that would go behind doing this publicly. I mean, he could privately say that, I guess. I still don't approve of it, don't agree with it, but he could have seen the Trump sign in his dad's yard and say, hey, Dad, you know what? I'm so turned off by Trump. I don't want to talk to you. We're just done talking. But he took to the media because he thinks that he is virtue signaling. He thinks he's sending a message to the world. Look how noble I am. Look how strong. Look how brave. I'm standing up. I'm going to divorce my dad. I'm going to never speak to my dad again because he said he's got a Trump sign in his yard. He's going to support Trump. So this guy puts this out there. He also had a Twitter feed in which he was putting this out too. He has since taken down his Twitter account, I think because he was being pummeled by people saying, are you out of your mind? That's the most asinine and childish thing I've ever heard in my life. But on a very serious note, I want to talk about where we are in politics in this country and what's really happening when you see stories like this laid out there. First of all, as I say, this guy writing the story, he chose not to be private. He chose to put it out there, and he actually thinks he's signaling virtue. He thinks he's telling the world, look how great I am. And I'm so bold, I'm willing to sacrifice a relationship with my dad, my own father, in order to stand up against Trump. This is what he's saying. And this is just a profoundly immature, it's hard to think of all the adjectives that should apply to this man, but immature, self-centered, shallow, pompous. So he puts this out there, and he got quite a bit of pushback, not just on Twitter, but it kind of went viral. Very proud of himself, very smugly proud of himself that he stood down his dad and tried to embarrass his dad nationally. A lot of media attention came from it. But I wanted to use talking about this story as a springboard to talk about the reality that in our country, we do have, as everyone knows, a great deal. I don't think it's as much as the media wants you to think, but we do have political division in this country. And in particular, we have political division in families related to whether or not to support President Trump. And so I want to run down kind of two paths of, I call this election of 2020 revolutionary, and I mean that in a multitude of ways. In this election cycle, in 2020, it's, at the end of the day, it's going to be a Democrat or Republican win, and it's going to be dragged out long past Election Day, and we're going to have all sorts of disputes, but we're really at a crucial America-shaping, future-shaping time. We're at a time when we have the radical left, the Revolutionary Communist Party of America leader out there saying, now's our time. We got them. Now's our time. We're going to take over America. We have radical Marxist groups filling the streets of America. No condemnation by the Democrats. No effort to shut them down. We have radical organizations around this country standing up and saying, now's our time. We have the Democrat Socialist Party of America actually claiming members of the United States Congress and Senate. We have Bernie Sanders, a very serious contender for the presidency 2 cycles in a row, getting young people's votes and openly, boldly saying, yeah, I'm a socialist. And Bernie Sanders is he's a communist. He thinks that's a great thing to say about himself. You have the Democrat Socialist Party of America, more bold, not hiding. You have members that the squad, 2 of the 4 squad members are actually members of the Democrat Socialist Party of America. You have the most outspoken, confrontational, direct effort of radical leftism in this country. Marxism, socialism, communism, all mixed together in an ugly, evil cabal, and they actually think they're going to take power. That's what's at stake in the 2020 elections. And I want to give you some other examples. I frequently talk about all the riots and what Antifa is all about and what BLM is all about. But there are other organizations in this country, too, doing similar kinds of things, similar kinds of statements. Before I get into them, I just want to mention something about the family division. You know, you hear, and I hear all the time, I have friends who say, well, I can't really talk about politics in front of my family anymore. We can't talk about politics. I have friends who say, you know, their kids tell them, you know, we don't like President Trump and we're embarrassed you like him. I have friends who say, you know, we just can't talk politics. We have to say, you know what, let's leave politics off the table. Let's have a nice Thanksgiving dinner. Let's have a nice family weekend. We have to leave politics off the table. Politics are at a fever pitch. They really are, and I get that. And it's happening in families around the country, and families deciding how to handle it. But this is not unique. It is especially noticeable in this era, in 2020, because the radical left has risen to alleged mainstream status in this country. The Democrat Party is flat out standing, their platform is a flat out Marxist platform, standing right with the Democrat Socialists. There's virtually no difference in their views. And so, yes, we have a radical challenge to the very core identity of America staring us in the face. We have had, though, similar times of division in our country. And these are interesting stories. I read a bunch of them before. I won't have time to go through all of them today. But back in time, in America's history, in the Revolutionary War, you had families where you had one member or several members of the family saying, yeah, we need to stand up against King George. We're going to demand our rights. We're going to demand that we not get taxation without representation. We're going to demand that we are treated fairly. We have to have some representation. We can't have this King George issuing edicts at a whim. You know, tension was rising, and you had some Americans saying, we're going to stand up and we're going to assert our rights. And you had other people saying, we're British. We can't do this. We're not going to stand up. That's our king. We are his subjects. That's what people are. People are subjects. The king is king. Everybody knows this. And you had families, literally brother against brother, father against son, siblings opposed to each other. That was true in the era of the Revolutionary War. There are great stories. In fact, you can read about them. There was a book, an opinion piece, and it's up on our website at americacanwetalk.org. On the homepage under shows, drop-down list of links, where writers, historians have written about the real details, getting into family stories of division within families at the Revolutionary War time. And you can now, at this era, where we are today, we can look back and think, well, I mean, that's sad and that's unfortunate, but hey, you know what? We understand, because some people could not get the idea of revolution. Other people were not going to let revolution go. They're going to push it. And so you're going to have conflict. And ultimately, families didn't speak. I'm not saying it's a great thing, but it happens in consequential times. It happens. Same thing in the Civil War. Another piece up at our website, americacanwetalk.org. A piece talking about the about the Civil War times, where you had people, families who had a division in how they saw things. There were stories about a Southern military leader capturing a Northern unit and finding his own son in that unit, dying. You have families, again, father versus son, brothers divided, families divided, taking sides in the Civil War because they didn't all see it the same way. And they had people who said, you know, I'm with the South, whatever reasons they had, and others saying, I'm with the North. And I'm saying all this to say, it is really, people right now feel, in our era here in 2020, we feel emotional. We don't like the idea that we're actually seeing division in families, and we wish somehow we could just get past the election or get past this era and then get back to normal and have normal family relationships. And I do want that for everyone. I think it's wonderful. I mean, I've often said to my own family, you know, family's everything. Family matters. Your family matters, and so you try to stay connected even though you disagree. But I really want to urge you, in this particular case, this guy who's this adult millennial, and I use the term adult loosely, but this man who wrote this piece essentially announcing divorcing his own dad because his dad had a Trump sign out, that guy, the one who wrote the article, he thinks he's standing for something noble. And we're going to get to a moment why he thinks that. But he thinks he's standing for something noble, and he's really telling his dad, you know, you're going to come around to how I think, or we're not going to speak. And the temptation for many people in that dad's position, or even if your child didn't write a nasty piece and make national news out of it, the divisions in families are hard to take. It's tender and it's upsetting, and you don't want to have it. And the temptation of this dad and other parents and other people seeing division in their families is to say, okay. If I agree not to put Trump sign in my yard, then can we be friends? Then can we smooth things over? If I agree I won't vote for Trump, even though no one ever knows how you voted, but if I agree not to support Trump anymore, can we be friends again? The temptation is to give in to the belligerence of the leftists in this country, because that's all this son is saying is, I'm a belligerent, intolerant leftist, and I insist my dad see things my way. I insist because I'm a belligerent, intolerant leftist, my dad has to agree with me. And it may have been tempting for this dad to say, okay, let's get along. But understand, people, this battle in 2020, it really is a parallel in importance. It is parallel in importance to the time of the Revolutionary War. It's that serious. What the left stands for in this country is the absolute destruction of the founding ideas of America. The absolute destruction of the ideas of the Declaration of Independence, the ideas that we all have rights from God, and that's where our rights come from, and simply because we were born, we have those rights. And then we have an inherent God-given right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And that includes the right to live in liberty, which means freedom and free markets. It means not having a government-controlled society. We have the right to life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. So we have the right to live in liberty, which means to pursue our free practice of our religion, our freedom of speech, everything the left is shutting down in this country. The left in America today is living in an ideological place where they have no tolerance for the basic found ideas of America. That is the battle of 2020. That's the battle of 2020 right here, right now. That's where we are. And so even though it was very hard in the Revolutionary War era and very hard in the Civil War era, I'm sure, for families to recognize, wow, my son is on the other side. My dad, my brother, or my sister, or my family are on the other side than I am. And it took political maturity. It took a kind of ideological maturity to say, I'm sorry to not be on the same side with my family, but I can't sacrifice what I believe in order to make peace with my family. Those people at that time, Revolutionary War, Civil War, it's the same thing today. We cannot sacrifice America to make peace with the belligerent, intolerant leftists trying to force their leftism, Marxism, socialism down our throats as citizens of this country. We cannot do that. We have to stand. So I want to talk about, when I say how revolutionary the left is right now, this young man's example, this millennial, belligerent writer who's saying, I'm divorcing my dad because of a Trump sign. He actually thinks he's doing the right thing because he has no idea what's really happening in this world, in this country. He has no idea. He is clueless. He has been led along by the radical left and the way they have laid things out in this country. He is, in a word, hypnotized. I'm going to come back to hypnotized in just a moment. I want to talk to you what I mean when I say this guy and literally millions like him in this country are hypnotized. They've been duped. They've been deluded by the leftist onslaught just aimed at destroying love of America, aimed at destroying the culture of America. It's been happening for a long time. But I want to hit two other points about when I say this is a revolutionary time, what I really mean. There was a piece recently, we talked about it briefly. It was by someone named Michael Anton, and it was called The Coming Coup. And it was a brilliant piece. I think it's up on our website again today, but it's been up there before. The Coming Coup by Michael Anton in a publication called The American Mind. And he basically is laying out what we are looking at in 2020. He's laying out the idea that the left is saying in this country, the left in this country today in 2020 is saying, we are not going to tolerate a victory by President Trump. We don't care what the majority of voters want. We don't care if the American election comes out in favor of Trump. We don't care. because the mission of the left is to take over America, not to present their ideas and spell out for you what they believe in and urge you to support those ideas through a vote. The mission of the left is to force those ideas on America, on you and all of America. So Michael Anton writes this piece, The Coming Coup. He talks about things that have happened, and I will tell you, we're going to get to Obama, hypnotism and Obama in a minute, but what he talks about in this thing, for example, during President Obama's era, throughout his 8 years of presidency, he worked assiduously to remove true patriots, true conservatives, strong America lovers from the higher ranks of the military. He worked to force them to retire, to get them out of there, which gave rise to and allowed the moving up of the leftist social justice warrior thinkers inside the military, which seems like there shouldn't be any of those, but there actually are. So you have a military less friendly to the idea of America, less committed to protecting the idea of America. Obama worked on this for 8 years. So here you have what you had Michael Anton talking about is you had Trump's first Secretary of Defense saying openly, kind of hinting, we're not really sure if the military is going to follow a presidential order. We're not too sure if that's going to happen. And then you had his second secretary, the sitting Secretary of Defense, all but publicly saying that he would not support President Trump if he invoked the Insurrection Act. So you had the top ranks of military already saying, we're not too sure we're going to go along with Trump, hinting away. And then you had, we talked about this briefly on this show, but you had a meeting which the contents of which were made public, a meeting among 100 Democrat, big top thinker, big top powerful people, including anti-Trump former Republicans, other ruling class people, funded by Soros, a very recent, big, large meeting funded by Soros to game out, this is their term, game out the way they're going to handle the post-election term. Like, what if Trump appears to win? What if we're unsettled because, we have Trump wins on election day, but we have a lot of uncounted mail-in ballots, or Biden wins on election day, but we have a lot of contested ballots. They gamed out all of the scenarios, and they're basically getting at the idea they're going to find a way that Trump loses. This is their mission, even though they said they are neutral. And so they talked about, what happens, and if Trump appears to win, they had this gaming out, actually play acting. They had John Podesta playing Biden and talking about what he should do if Trump appears to win. Then you had Hillary chiming in, well, he should refuse to concede, never concede. I mean, they actually worked through their game plan. And I tell you this, people, because you have to understand how serious this is. The left is not thinking, what is the way that we could convince more Americans next time around to buy into our ideas if we happen to lose the 2020 presidential elections? That's not what they're talking about. They're talking about the idea, what do we do to take power anyway? So this guy, you should read this piece by Michael Anton, but then I'm going to go on and tell you what the outcome was of this Michael Anton writing this piece. So there's another group, Transition Integrity Project. Transition Integrity Project. The guy who founded that, Nils Gilman, Gilman, the founder of this allegedly bipartisan Transition Integrity Project, actually called for the execution, as in physical killing, execution of the former Trump administration national security official, Michael Anton, who wrote this piece about the coming coup. He actually called for his death. This is not, some goofball, drugged out, Occupy Wall Street fool in some city park someplace. This is a guy with a stature sufficient to put together his organization, and he's out talking about the execution of Michael Anton for daring to write this piece, The Coming Coup. People, it's a serious, serious time. I've had this thought so many times. I wonder at various points in history in other countries where freedom was taken away and tyranny was coming in Venezuela, in Cuba. How many people sat around talking about these things and recognizing, something's really, really wrong here. Something's really off base here. I mean, I think we should be a little bit more worried than we are. But This is what we're facing. This is where the left is headed. And I want to get to one other piece that just talks about how radical the left is before I get to talking with you about Obama and about the idea of hypnotism, which is what really drove this guy to write this piece about his dad. But in one of the little factoid about how the radical left feels emboldened in this country. So in the state of New York, they had, elections recently, fairly recently, and they had a bunch of, in the summertime, Democrat primary elections for state assembly and state senate seats. And you all know AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, far radical leftist. She's a Democrat socialist. She's really pretty much of a communist, very, very radical leftist. She's been right in the middle of stirring things up in New York and trying to get all of these people in New York, these seats, these state senate seats, state assembly seats, she wants those filled by radical leftists like her. And so you had victories along those lines in these primaries over the summer. And so they're moving toward, they have a strategy document. The Democrat Socialists of America have a strategy document. They're planning to back a slate of city council candidates in New York, in the city, who, if elected, would create a socialist caucus at New York City Hall. Now again, people, they're using the process we are permitted in our country. They're using the process of elections, but they're using the process to overthrow America. We cannot continue to humor socialism, democratic socialism, as belonging on the American playing field, as being part of what we all think is kind of okay in America. We need to stop pretending that these are okay ideas, that we're somehow going to be okay with them if they succeed in having a socialist majority on the city council in New York City. We have to recognize how radically things would change. But these things are happening right in front of our eyes. Right in front of our eyes. We're watching the Democrat Socialists of America say, yeah, we're going to take down New York City. That's the next piece. So now I want to talk to you a little bit about this hypnotism idea and what I really mean by that and why it's so important for this in this era for people who are wide awake and alert, which is people who listen to this show, to understand how serious these times are. This whole segment kicked off with the story about the guy who wrote a piece and proudly sent it out there saying he's divorcing his father. He's telling his father, you will never talk to your grandchildren again. You'll never talk to me again if you support President Trump. And as I said, he feels justified in doing that. He thinks he's right. And the reason he thinks he's right is because I'm trying to think of terms to explain it, but it's like hypnotism. It's like being mesmerized, a mass mesmerism, a mass hypnotism that has overtaken many people in this country at the hands of the media. When you think about the 3 years we've had President Trump in office, we've had virtually every media outlet in America spend every potential moment they had, every issue they could cover, every story they could cover. You had them talking in some way about how bad President Trump is. You had the allegations of the Trump-Russia collusion hoax. And even after it was proven there was nothing to it, millions of dollars and thousands of hours and hundreds of depositions, nothing to it at all. Everyone concedes nothing to it at all. And yet, if you add, there was polling recently showing the majority of Democrat voters still think, well, there was probably something they didn't just find it. You've had the media working to destroy President Trump since the time he announced he was running, since he was candidate Trump. You've had them attacking his character. You've had them attacking his every word, every action, every bill, every executive order, everything about his life, everything about his history. You've been pummeled by the media. America has been pummeled by the media into believing that there is something really, truly, deeply evil and wrong with President Trump, but you just don't know it. But the media is out there telling you over and over and over. It's like the time I've mentioned to my listeners before. In high school, I had the great opportunity to go to Russia while it was still, it was the Soviet Union, it was still communist. And so I got to actually go with a group of students to communist Russia. And walking in the streets of Moscow, you would hear there were the telephone poles, and at the top, these big, big megaphones, and you're hearing the whole time you're walking anywhere in public in Moscow, you're hearing this voice, this radio broadcast coming out of these loudspeakers. And it was in Russian, so we couldn't understand it. And so I asked our guide one time, well, what are they talking about? Why is that always on? And he said, it's communist propaganda. All they do. They're spewing out all day long, every day, in all the big cities in Russia, communist propaganda, the beauty of communism, the greatness of the Workers' Party, how we have set the workers free, the evil of freedom, the evil of capitalism, the evil of America. I mean, it spews out all day long. These people had no choice but to hear it all day long. It's what the media has done to this country, tried to do this country, in attacking President Trump. Over and over and over. Everything he does, every move he makes, questioning his reasons for his actions with respect to the Iranian deal, with respect to the climate change deal, with respect to the United Nations, with respect to legislation he tries to do. I mean, there has every executive order, everything there is, the left has attacked and attacked and attacked and attacked. And the media in this country, I mean, the one time Harvard actually did an honest study and said it was well over like 92% of the coverage by mainstream media in this country, coverage of Trump was negative. This poor fool who wrote this piece divorcing his dad is the victim, the recipient of that mass mesmerism against Trump. You talk to some young people, they say, well, I don't like Trump, I don't like Trump. And you try to press, why? Well, what is it? And they'll say, well, you know, he's really a liar. Okay, well, really, what do you lie about? And this is often the answer. You go, well, everyone knows he's a liar. So he's a liar. He's a this, he's a that. And I tell you, people, it is the discerning among us, the discerning Americans who recognize no one's saying President Trump is a perfect person. No one's saying anyone on the planet Earth is a perfect person. But what President Trump has done to restore the idea of America in the face of the onslaught of leftism in this country is nothing short of miraculous. This is why Trump supporters are still Trump supporters. Those who are discerning, they're not going to just get pushed off their position. They're not going to get talked out of it because some media outlet comes up with some latest hit piece on President Trump. But there are millions like this young man, the I'm divorcing my parents type guy, who have just been duped. They are people like hypnotized, and they are pulled around and pushed around by the media like a puppet on a string. You're told to hate Trump, and here's another reason, and here's what you should say, and here's what you think. And these people who do not dive in and get the big picture of America, the big picture of what we're facing in 2020, they actually think they're doing something noble, standing up for destroying the Trump presidency or for making sure he does not win the next time. What's on the ballot in 2020 is the future of America, the future of freedom and the country rooted in the promises of the Declaration of the Constitution, or the radical leftists that have taken over the Democrat Party and will take over this country if we don't wise up in this election cycle. So this kid, mesmerized, hypnotized, deluded, because he has no grounding in facts whatsoever, everything he accuses Trump of saying why he hates Trump is really what the left is guilty of. But our country is full of these people, full of these young millennials, not a clue what's actually happening, no sense of historical perspective, no sense of the astounding importance for standing up for the idea of America. That's what we're facing in this country. And so, if your family is suffering one of these instances, one of these kind of episodes, I'm very sorry. I know they're very, very hard to take, but you cannot, for the same reason as the time of the Revolutionary War, the time of the Civil War, to say, okay, we'll give in, and whatever you want to keep us happy, to keep you happy. If you want us to not support President Trump, okay, fine, because the stakes are too high. The election really is not about Trump versus Biden. That's not really what it is. It is America the free under the Declaration of the Constitution, or America under a tyrannical government, which the left is happily trying to bring to your life. And the second thing about this hypnotism, mesmerism point, the media has been doing this to President Trump since he came down the escalator. But even worse, the media has been doing this, mesmerizing, hypnotizing, deluding American citizens about the very idea of America for at least the entire time of the Obama administration and actually way before that. But you look at the Obama era, all the destruction done to the idea of America, and the media was silent. The media was complicit. The media was praising President Obama. Any criticism of any of his policy decisions or of anything he did was immediately met with cries of racism and hate and bigotry. And so the media succeeded in silencing many Americans who didn't want to be seen criticizing President Obama. But during the Obama era, the attack was not just on, it wasn't Democrat versus Republican. It was the leftist cabal who's risen to now very public control of the American left, of the Democrat Party. That mindset was carried out in the Obama administration for 8 years. It was things like going ahead in the Iranian deal, succeeding in giving away money, American money, and capitulating to the Iranian mullahs, this alleged Iranian nuclear deal. The actual deal was enabling the Iranians, the largest, biggest terror exporting country in the world, sending them billions of dollars and signing a deal with them that said essentially, you're supposed to stop building nuclear weapons, except the most important areas, whereas the only place you'd logically be doing it anyway are off limits to inspectors. That was the Iranian deal. That was profound felony level irresponsibility of the media not to call that out. President Obama succeeded in that because the media never called him out. The destruction of America, the emboldening of radical Islam, and the endangering of Israel as our ally. You had the Obama administration fomenting that, and very little criticism, very little, except in the conservative circles. We had experts on our show talking about the danger of the Iranian. While it was being discussed, we had experts on saying this is a really bad deal. I don't know why we're doing this. But you had Obama gutting the military, gutting the serious conservative leaders, the high leaders who were patriotic, conservative, America-loving, rooting them out, giving rise to the social justice warrior class of military leader. You had the military in America gutted fiscally. You had drawn down the power, the ability of the American military to stand up and defend this country. You only would do that if you're trying to diminish America. You're trying to hurt America, trying to diminish America's place in the world. You had socialized medicine. The moment President Obama came to office, we began this push towards socialized medicine, which passed in March of 2010 and was probably the single biggest issue that drove the American voters to take away the Democrat majority in the House. So President Obama didn't have, because when he was elected in 2008, he had the White House, the House, and the Senate. And the American voters took one look at what he did in putting forth socialized medicine in the form of Obamacare and took it away. But again, a media complicit, covering up for his lies, not publishing the idea, not driving home the idea that President Obama promised, if you like your health care provider, you can keep your health care provider. If you like your insurance, you can keep your insurance. Flat out lies. Never possible under the program he was developing, never intended to be the law, never was the law, but no attention, no calling out of the idea, not just that the administration had to lie to get it done, but the bigger point is no effort of the media in this country to call out the idea that socialized medicine has no place in America. No place in America. It will destroy the healthcare system. It has badly damaged the healthcare system already. I could run through a bunch of other points, but my big point in this entire segment about this 2020 is a revolutionary election. This is a revolutionary election. We, on the conservative side, are holding on to the idea of America. We have to recognize what the left is bringing, what they are proposing, what they're selling to the American people is tyranny. They are selling Marxism, they're selling socialism, and you know what? It's going to cause some division in American society. It's going to cause some families to suffer division and suffer heartbreak because parents aren't speaking, or some idiot millennial, ignorant millennial, publishes an article talking about how he's so proudly divorced his dad. I'm very sorry for the dad in that case. I'm sorry for those grandkids being told they can't see their grandfather because their dad is such an ignorant millennial that somehow he thinks he's doing something virtuous by depriving his own grandchildren of getting to see their father. Politics in this country, the election cycle in this country is extremely to state the obvious, in extremely highly tense times in this country. There's a great deal of division in this country. It is not caused by President Trump. President Trump is doing exactly what his voters elected him to do, which is steering the ship back on course for America, bringing back the idea of bringing secure borders, constitutional government, limited government, free markets, bringing back jobs. President Trump is restoring America, exactly what he said he would do. And this is why the left is so insane, because after 8 years of Obama, they've done a pretty darn good job of steering America toward the cliff, over the cliff to socialism. They were almost there. They were almost there, just getting rid of the very founding ideas of America. And President Trump came along and won and spoiled the day for them. This is why the left is so hysterical about President Trump. This is why this election cycle matters so much, because what the left sees is an opportunity to vilify Trump, to make people hate him, to make ignorant people like this young man who wrote this piece about "I'm divorcing my dad," to make people hate Trump and decide whatever else, just vote against Trump, not realizing what they're voting for is the tyranny, the Marxism, the leftism that the left will happily bring to this country the moment you let them have power. We are Venezuela back in 1999. When people in Venezuela thought, wow, this is so cool. This Hugo Chavez guy, he's going to bring everything, make everything great here. Everything's going to be free and everything's going to be utopian and happy and no more unfairness and no more poverty and no more want. Everything's going to be great. The people in Venezuela got duped in 1999 and they voted for their own destruction. Voting left in this election cycle is the same thing. It's voting for their own destruction. I'm very sorry it causes division in families. It's a sad, sad thing, and it does. But the choice of Americans in this election cycle is standing up for the idea of America, the perpetuation of the America of the founding, of the Declaration, of the Constitution, or throwing it all away and let the leftist cabal, the radical Marxists who've taken over the Democrat Party, let them have control, let them seize power, and let them do to America what Chavez and his team did to Venezuela and what you saw Castro do to Cuba. Castro ran the same kind of party, the same kind of, oh, I'm here to save you, rescue you, make you all safe, the same kind of lies. There's no difference between that, what Castro did to Cuba, what Chavez did to Venezuela, than what the left wants to do to America today. They are that radical. I have one more closing thing today, and I know I'm short on time, but on a happy note to end the show, Kim Klacik, running for U.S. Congress, she is running to represent as a Republican, represent the district in Baltimore, and she has some great campaign ads that I'm going to close as Ray of Hope. This is Kim Klacik's new ad.
Do you care about Black lives? I do. And unlike the people that currently run Baltimore, I actually have a plan to make life better for Black people here. Walk with me. I want you to see this. I'm Kim Klacik. This is Baltimore, the real Baltimore. This city was once among the most prosperous, populated, and powerful cities in America. So what happened? Our leaders abandoned us and Baltimore fell into ruin. But it doesn't have to be this way. None of this has to be this way. A broken Baltimore does not have to be our future. And that's why I'm running for Congress, because I see the city differently. I walk the streets of Baltimore and see what could be. I want you to see what I see. I see Baltimore that picks up trash. There are piles of garbage all around Baltimore. It makes life unsafe for our families. I'll work with city leaders to get Baltimore's Solid Waste Bureau the resources it needs to take out the trash. Our streets should be a reflection of our leaders. Clean, not dirty. Much of our trash gathers in abandoned homes. There are over 17,000 abandoned buildings in Baltimore. They are a scar on the face of our city. I will support tax credits and incentive programs to give residents a chance to buy and rehabilitate these homes. Everyone deserves a safe community and a chance at home ownership. Let's put the charm back in Charm City. Who will live in these homes? The newly employed constituents of Baltimore City. This district needs more jobs. The best way to get them is by having businesses invest in our community. The Tax Cuts and Jobs Act gives federal tax incentive to drive private investment into opportunity zones just like Baltimore. Who will work in all of these new jobs if we don't have an educated workforce? 9 out of 10 Black boys in Baltimore are not reading at grade level. Over a dozen high schools in Baltimore have zero, yes, zero, students proficient in math. This is a tragedy. We can end the school-to-prison pipeline with school choice, providing parents with options to escape schools that do not serve our children.
Let's make Baltimore better for our kids. Isn't that the point? That's my vision for Baltimore. The corrupt leaders hate it. They attack me for taking a stand, for wanting better for our people, our children, our communities. But I'm not the only one who wants better.
Tens of millions of you have shared the struggle of Black people in Baltimore. You lifted our voices. You cared about our Black lives more than our own Democrat leaders. They have done nothing for us. Now they can't hide. It's time for change. We are that change.
Okay, I should wrap it up there, but you know what, folks? This lady, that ad is driving the Democrat Party out of their minds. Because part of that, I talk about mesmerism and hypnotism and being just duped by what the media, the lies the media paints. They have duped too many Americans about what President Trump, what he stands for, what he's done, his extraordinary record of accomplishment. They have duped America about what America is. And so you have too many young people just falling into the trap of thinking America is a terrible, horrible, evil place. And you have the Democrat media mob in this country has worked for decades to convince Black Americans that the only answer for Black Americans is to vote Democrat. And through this whole media mesmerism and Hollywood and journalism and just the entire academia structure, messaging to America that America is a bad place, that American ideas are bad, that the founding of America was a bad thing. That's the whole point of the 1619 Project, that America is a deeply racist nation, that America is a hateful nation, and that the only party that cares about Black people or women is the Democrat Party, and the Republican Party somehow is to be viewed as endlessly your enemy. The media in this country has aided the Democrat Party in these lies told to the American people for decades. Someone running for Congress like Kim Klacik, those ads, of course, have gone viral, and she's doing well. I have no idea if she can win as a Republican in that district, but what she's saying is resonating with people around this country. She's saying and telling them, you don't have to believe the lies of the Democrat Party. You ought to wake up and see, look at the results. Look what decades and decades and decades of Democrat policies have done to Baltimore. There's no argument the Democrats have except probably calling her racist. I don't know what they'll do, but it's a very powerful thing when a young woman like that stands up and says, I'm helping you, my fellow citizens, understand there are better choices than continuing to vote for the Democrat Party that has destroyed Baltimore. I'm going to close the show as I do every day by telling you why the stories I talked about today matter to you. So we start out today talking about the Supreme Court. Senate stands ready. The word is out. Senator Graham, others say the Senate has the votes to confirm the Supreme Court nominee, and this is as it should be. We, the people, gave the White House to Trump and the Senate majority to the GOP. The Constitution, President nominates to fill the vacancy, Senate roll, advise and consent. We're rocking. Top names, Amy Coney Barrett and Barbara Lagoa, already recently confirmed by Senate. Lagoa got 80 affirmative Senate votes. Somehow, I don't think they need to talk to her again to find out if she's ready for the Supreme Court. Constitution does not require a Senate hearing, and the Senate ought to dispense with any. The Kavanaugh nomination proved hearings are unserious, political circus of staged lies, obfuscation, and delay, grotesque mistreatment of honorable nominees. The left's threats and intimidation confirm contempt for the Constitution itself. All the more reason to appoint justices who follow the Constitution. Trump will make the nomination. Let's hope the Senate will confirm ASAP. And on families divided, Trump and revolutionary 2020 elections, the story of the adult son publicly divorcing his father for supporting of Trump goes viral, denying father grandparent visitation rights unless Trump is denounced. The Transition Integrity Project publicly games out Trump removal upon a Biden victory. The founder advocates killing of Michael Anton, who wrote The Coming Coup. Extraordinarily sad signs of the times, but not uncommon when the stakes are so high. Compare pre-Revolutionary War and pre-Civil War eras. 2020 is not Trump versus Biden. It's America and freedom versus the end of America. Some Americans appear nearly hypnotized into blindness over what is at stake. Antifa, BLM, Democrat Party openly advocate and engage in destruction of constitutional order and law and order itself. All awake, informed people want freedom. They want America preserved. And families divided, Trump revolutionary. One more. And on the Kim Klacik Ray of Hope, the Why It Matters. Klacik's political ads are sparkling, inspirational, raising the discussion to the level of ideas that work and ideas that don't work, breaking free of habits of tribalism, affirming the power of American ideals, the splintering of blacks, Hispanics, and Asians away from the monolithic support of the Democrat Party is a real thing, and the walkaway momentum is growing. These are the seeds of a Trump landslide when the mainstream media does not see, and they will not admit. If Kim Klacik wins a congressional seat for Baltimore area, watch out. A major realignment will be underway. And that, my very fine friends, is America Can We Talk for today. This is my very last time to tell you, I'm hosting a conference in Dallas this coming Saturday, September 26th. We now have Dr. Simone Gold speaking, fabulous leader of frontline doctors. We have Katie Hopkins speaking, British, everyone knows Katie Hopkins. Katie Hopkins, British spokesperson, advocate for freedom, lover of America, she's speaking. We have a stellar lineup of extraordinary speakers. It's the very last day I can say this to you. If you're interested in getting tickets, even if you've emailed me in the past, email today to americacanwetalk@gmail.com. Put in the subject line, conference tickets, and I'll send you tickets how to get. We have a very few tickets left. The conference is going great. We're just excited. We have a few tickets left. I'd love to have you come. You can come to Dallas this coming Saturday, September 26th. And if you love this show, go to my website, americacanwetalk.org. On the homepage, hit that subscribe button. You get a once weekly newsletter. And if you hit the donate button, you can support this show. This is an entirely listener-supported show that is now under attack from the social media giants. If you love this show, you want to help me out, please consider a one-time or a recurring donation. Very simple to make at americacanwetalk.org. And closing, I'll say, I do this show every Monday through Thursday at 3 p.m. Central Time. America Can We Talk is all about speaking up for America because America matters. And I will talk to you next time.
America Can We Talk? Truth about America.